seconds. Sit still and look pretty. Now, I like the sound of that one. Daya, and the time is 25 minutes to 3 o'clock. It's a 1, 2, 3 show. Now, if you have young children, then you'll know that these days you are faced with even more challenges than ever before to keep them occupied and stimulated without using your mobile phone or the television. Now, books are still an essential part of learning from a very young age, and it's really important to get children interested in them for both the short-term and the long-term effects on their development and education. My next guest was thinking just that after her first daughter was born, and she was inspired to create silent books that captured the essence of her surroundings and kept her stimulated and happy. Let me welcome my guest in the studio, Hai An Vu, founder of Little Beans Toy Chest, Hong Kong, to tell me more. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Sadia. Thank you very much for having me here
You're
today.
very welcome. And we are on Facebook Live as well, if you'd like to see the interview and the books as well. Now, tell me the story behind these books. When did it all start? And what made you think, oh yes, I'm gonna make these books up myself? How did it start?
Yes, so my daughter was born 6 years ago, and by the time she turned 1, when she was born, it was all about feeding her, keeping her alive. But when she was 1, toy became very important. Mm-hmm. I wanted her to learn through the toys, and I understood then from Montessori and Waldorf approaches that I have read that it's very important for them to learn through tactile sensory stimulation, mm-hmm. which means touching a lot of different materials. However, when I went to the toy stores, I didn't see a lot of things I liked in terms of that kind of stimulation. And a lot of things were battery operated, a lot of plastics, and so that became the motivation for me first to experiment with the felt as a medium to make the toys. And then after a while I started thinking about making silent books, or we also call it the quiet books. So these books have multiple purposes. First, we can incorporate a lot of things in them, like zippers, laces, velcros, a lot of different interactive features so that the kids can play with. And the other thing is, it's also a medium that you can tell stories. It's a book. It's wordless, but it's if you sequence the different details, or
so the narrative could be different each time when you go through those books.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And when the kids grow up, they can imagine more, and the story becomes more complex, and they can play with their parents. So that was my initial inspiration. And then I decided to do books. At first I looked a lot at Pinterest, and then I started doing my own design. And I wanted to do books that tell the stories of our lives and not just copy paste somewhere else. So we did books like the I Love Hong Kong, this one, which is very
this is
popular.
A very cute book, yeah.
Yes, we tell the story of how we live in Hong Kong with a different
see the Bank
icons.
Of China there.
Yes, and this is a ferry, and then this is a bus, and the taxi, and the ding ding, things like that. And so it tells the story of Hong Kong. It's iconic sites. It's festivals, and it's food, the dim sum and everything.
Oh, show me that page.
Yes.
I thought that was quite cute. Oh, right.
Yes, this is a wet market.
And these are all removable, because you've got the little fruit in the little case there.
So this one is removable, so they can pretend play to make that. And then this, you can see the red light, which is very iconic for the Hong Kong wet market. And this is dim sum.
There's dim sum inside there.
Yes, so then they can pretend to eat.
That's
and
really
my daughter
cute.
loves it. She was like, she was eating it. So it becomes, it was kind of my little play, but people loved it. So I started selling it commercially.
You got the fish market now too.
Yes, the fish market. And this is the panda that you can kind of
it's lovely,
play.
isn't it? Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Because children, if you're just unwrapping something, you've come back from your shopping and stuff, and there may be a toy, a box toy or something, and you show this child. I just recently had this because I remember I gave a present to somebody, and this little child was actually not interested in the toy, they were interested in the paper that it came out of,
Yes,
and
of
the
course.
ribbon that was stuck in there, so they could pull it off.
Yes.
So exactly what you've kind of done here, where it's just very interactive, isn't it?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So yeah, and the thing is, the narrative grows with time. So it's a good way for them to play by themselves, but also they can play with the parents, and the parents can teach them different things. So I have this book, for example, about the everyday life, but it has this page about brushing teeth that everyone loves, because then you can show that they can show the kids how to brush their teeth. So the parents can use that
there as well.
as a lesson, right? To
That's
tell
really
the
cute.
2-year-old, it's time to brush your teeth, and this is how, and they love this kind of pretend play activities.
Great. So you, in a way, your daughter was a guinea pig for this, and
Of course.
So how did she react to these? Did you find that some of that time was going, and she was actually looking at it herself and playing around with it?
Yes, of course, because our house, as you can imagine, is surrounded by these books. And so I'm always inspired anytime I see her picking up and playing by herself, because it's not like I have to tell her, hey, please play with this, but it's out of her own curiosity, and she would want to explore
They're very
something
colourful
new.
as well, aren't they?
Yes.
That's the thing.
Yes, so there are many things that many ways that they can play, and so it becomes a very personal experience for themselves and their family. Yes.
So now, in terms of how wearable are they, and how long can they last? Because if you drop something on it, then it's going to stain, but is it kind of washable? Is it something that's going to last a reasonable amount of time? Because obviously in this day and age, we're all looking at sustainability, we're all looking at something that's reasonably environmentally friendly and things. How do these books match up to that?
Sure, yes. So the first thing you mentioned sustainability, which is also the core of our business as well, and that's the main reason why I don't like the plastic toys so much. These books are quite durable, first because they're well made, and if there's anything, any page is stained, you can also take off this clasp and then just kind of take it out like a ring binder here. And then each page you can hand wash them one by one.
Okay.
I've never had any complaints in the over 3 years that I've
And
I've
has your
had the
daughter
book.
ever dropped her milk bottle or whatever on there? Her blackberry juice or something?
Yeah. I mean, accidents happen with kids, right? Which is why the ability to wash is important. But the other thing I have noticed is that because the educational value changes with time, it becomes very long-lasting gift, because when they were young, they are more interested in like touching. This is the texture, this is a button, this is the Velcro and the laces, and then they can do a little bit of fine motor skills activities. However, later it becomes more of a storytelling, so they still keep it and they use it for different purposes. And so, for example, this is changing, and, and so they
you can dress
change.
them up in different clothes.
Yes,
I remember having these books where there were cutouts when we were much younger, and they were cutouts, paper books, and they were paper people, girls and boys, and then you'd get the clothes, and then you just clip the clothes on and change the clothes. So it's again, do you think that in this day and age, that's kind of being lost now? I mean, because when I walk through Hong Kong or any city at that matter, and you see children in prams and stuff and strollers, and I tell you, the number of children I see who are holding mobile phones, seriously, very young children. I mean, how do you feel about that? I mean, that must certainly have an effect, because I have heard recently that quite a few children, some of the development of speech is taking time because they're so engrossed in these phones. I mean, that is a challenge, isn't it?
Yes, I absolutely agree, and I understand the parents' dilemma, because people are busy. They want to have personal time. They want to talk to their friends, and I'm a mom too, so I have the same problems. But I have no illusion. I have no belief that digital devices at this age is helpful for children, from 0 to 6 is when the brain is very malleable. The brain is very open to new stimulations, and they should be stimulated with things that are more three-dimensional and more interesting than texture, and that helps them with creativity and imagination rather than being fed a lot of contents. So my personal story is, for me, I'm from Vietnam, so learning Vietnamese is extremely important for me. So I allowed my children only one app, which is the one to learn Vietnamese.
Okay.
And then after a while I found they're not learning anything, but they're just playing the points to gain the stars, you know.
Yeah.
So then I found out, you know, it's really, even if the intention is really good, maybe there are some apps out there that are better than others, but in general that kind of two-dimensional interaction is really not very beneficial for children.
Yeah.
So then these books are kind of alternatives, and a lot of times people buy them because they pack them for the airplane, or, you know, for outing trips where they can kind of let the book babysit
Where
the
they
kids
know
for
they
a
may
bit.
not have Wi-Fi.
Yes, and it becomes an alternative
Sure.
for those kind of entertainment, and I do believe that, especially because we live in the age where everyone is promoting digital literacy, promoting like science, technology, math, and all these things that you can teach by digital means.
Yeah.
It is still quite equally important to teach them to
Yeah.
like think freely and
Absolutely.
have imaginations.
I think the idea that you've just said about, like, there's no words in this book. When you do read a normal book, there's words in it, and then children remember the words, and so it gets a little bit boring after a while, maybe because they know exactly what's going to happen next.
Yes.
But the nice thing is that here you can change your story. You can say, well, there was a fish in the wet market who felt like this, or whatever. So that's really nice to be able to sort of adapt that. Now, the other thing is that these books, some of the proceeds for these books, you are actually giving to a paediatric hospital and to patients. So what kind of inspired that? Is your experience, or you want back something to Vietnam?
Yes, exactly. I'm from Vietnam. I was born and raised there, and so it's also, these books are actually made in Vietnam by our team. So it's a cause that's very dear to my heart, to support the community there, especially the children there. And through my friend, I learned about the needs of the hospital children who don't have enough financial support for their medical needs. So I would like to use some of the proceeds that we have here, very modest still, but I would like to support for that.
I should think these are probably quite nice to have in hospitals, to tell you the truth. These kind of books.
Yes, that's an idea that we might have for Chinese New Year as a gift for them.
Yeah, because I can see kids loving it in hospitals, and I think the whole aspect that nobody has to read it to them as such, they can make the stories up, would be quite good.
Exactly.
Okay, so let me just finish with asking now, what are your sort of ambitions now? What would you like to do? Is it just that you'd like to continue, say, getting these books out there to young parents, you know, with their little kids, or have you got some other ideas in mind?
Yes, that's a great question, and it's the beginning of New Year, so we are full of ambitions, let me say. So I recently have had this kind of soul searching into what we really want as a mission of the business, and for me especially, is very important that the kids have imagination and creativity. It's also to celebrate their uniqueness in terms of their perception of the world, how they identify with certain cultures, or appreciate other cultures, how they appreciate the beauties in different senses. So we would like to continue to expand the book collection to capture all these
different
ideas.
areas. Yeah.
Yes, and there are multitudes of ways to do that. And first is different countries that the children may visit, apart from Hong Kong, Singapore, London, China, were the ones that we've done. And then also we look at different venues for them to access to, say, the arts. let's say, very like beautiful artworks, but make it in an accessible way by means of quiet books, so that kids don't just look at them like look at an art book, but they actually can play and interact with them.
That's brilliant.
So I think those are the things that are in our pipeline, and we are very excited for the new year.
Well, I wish you luck. I think they're wonderful books. I always bump into my guests at different places. I was at a sustainable Christmas market, and I suddenly came across this stall, and I was looking at the books, and it just caught my attention, and that's when I met Hyan. And so thank you very much for coming in today.
Thank you.
I wish you luck with the books. And again, you can go to my Facebook page and have a look at them. They look lovely. And again, if you missed this interview, you can look at it on Facebook Live, or you can get the podcast. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you, Sadia.
That was great.
Right. You're right on time.
Super. Yeah.
Good, thank you. I hope my intern will capture it on
That was
Facebook
lovely.
Live. Yeah.
Lovely interview.
Thank
Good one.
you.
Yeah, you'll get some interest, hopefully.